It's extra time.
He shoots, and it's a goal!
Hello everyone and welcome back to Extra Time, coming at you as a podcast and a YouTube video as normal now. I'm Patrick Van Straten and today I'm joined by Mike Atkins. Hello Mike.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And Michael McCubbin. How are you, Mikey?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you.
Yeah? How's quarantine treating you?
Yeah, not too bad actually. Not too bad. Yeah, I'm not missing the commute. I'm missing, being in the office and stuff with people, but I'm not missing the journeying to work and stuff. So that's actually been quite good. That's been, quite a fortunate aspect for myself. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. I feel like I had a kind of shaky few days, maybe a couple of weeks ago, when kind of really sunk in, which I'm sure everyone's kind of had. But since then, yeah, I've not been too bad at all. How about yourselves?
I'm glad things are looking up. Yeah, same. I think it kind of comes and goes, doesn't it? Like you have a couple of weeks where you're like, this is fine. I'm at home with the cat and the wife. And then you have 3 days where you're angry at everyone all the time.
Yeah.
But it's, I suppose there's something comforting in knowing that we're kind of in it together.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about how the season might end, because recently UEFA have been talking about their recommendations. We've seen some changes made to Euro 2020, which it will still be called, and different leagues are considering what their options will be at the end of the season. So we are going to get into that. But first of all, we want to bring you a message from our sponsors at Beer 52. Now, Beer 52, we've used them before, and as you probably know by now, they are a craft beer delivery service. You can get 8 craft beers from them for £5 right now if you go to www.beer52.com/extra. The £5 is really just delivery, and they will deliver 8 beers to your doorstep. Then it's a subscription service. They produce different themes for their beers every month. So you might get a theme of New Zealand or Germany or Ireland or Korea, and they will produce 8 beers from that place for you to kind of discover. So it's a great way to discover new beers if you are interested in it. McCubbin, my understanding is that you are a Beer 52 subscriber. Is that right?
I am a recent convert. But pretty much as soon as quarantine was put in place, I decided that was probably something that I had to do with my life.
Yeah.
And it was good. It's good. Yeah. I mean, I've only so I'm just coming to the end of the first month, which was like you said, like free with the promotion. And yeah, I got 8 beers. I think I liked all of them, which is pretty cool considering they were all, had a fair amount of variety. And then one of them I liked so much that I ended up actually ordering from that direct brewer that specific beer. So yeah, so it's quality. Yeah, they're really good. You can tell from their like selections and stuff that they're like proper into it, and you can do like things like they've got options. So if you like I don't really like stout, so they've got 2 options whereby you can do like a mixture of beer, dark and light, or just light beer. And when they say light beer, it's not just like ridiculously weak beer. It's just like beer that's not like ridiculously dark. So
like Vice beers or something like.
So, so you can get like Vice beers, and even like IPAs, which are a little bit dark, kind of come over that as well. It just means that you're not going to get like some like 8% stout, which it's just not really my thing.
Especially now it's a bit hotter. Like it's
exactly.
It's not really stout time.
Yeah, it really isn't. It really isn't. It's the bleak winter months that those come into play. So I would genuinely recommend it.
Oh well, I'm glad. And obviously, like McCubbin says, it's pretty flexible. So you sign up for a subscription, but you can of course pause or cancel anytime you want. In the case of beer that you also get a copy of Craft Beer Magazine Ferment and a tasty snack. So if you go to beer52.com/extra, that's beer52.com/extra, you can get that first case of 8 beers for £5, which is pretty much the cost of a pint. Pretty amazing. beer52.com/extra. Let's get into it. Right, guys, so today we've got a question from a viewer. It's Sivart God. He says, how do you guys think the season should be ended? And how do you guys think the Champions League and Europa spots and winners should be decided. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of news on this topic this week. UEFA have been discussing plans with some leagues. A couple of divisions have cancelled or announced their plans to cancel their season. I believe that Germany are currently figuring out a way to restart the Bundesliga in May, but we're not exactly sure. Well, it'd be great to have some football, eh?
Yeah.
Yes, some football we care about.
Yeah,
no one's really plugged in on Belarus or Nicaragua or, or whatever it is.
And they at least seem to be trying to be careful. So basically, the German government has decided that large events with crowds will be banned to at least August. So these games would be spectator free. And you'd still probably have about 300 people in the stadium because of, ball boys, coaching staff, medics, TV crews, and so on. Now, it remains to be seen whether that's going to be allowed, because Germany's federal states have power here, so they could decide that 300 people in a stadium is too many. And besides, there's also the issue of the players, right? Because you keep the players apart all the time. But then when they're out on the pitch, they're going to be wrestling each other. They're going to be pushing each other around. Everyone's going to be breathing heavily. It just seems like it could be dangerous. On the other hand, I do trust the Germans to do it properly. But Michael Atkins, I was trying to decide which Michael to come to. What do you think is going to happen in the major leagues? Do we think that they're actually going to be able to resume, or does this feel like Germany are going to maybe put on one round of fixtures and then immediately abandon it again?
It's very, very hard to try and work out what might actually happen. I think we have to accept that if the seasons are to finish, it will be without fans, which personally, I understand the issue with no fans in the stadium, but I also don't think it's a big issue if there are no fans in the stadium, because at the end of the day, most fans don't go to the games. 99% of fans don't go to games. They're all watching it on TV or watch it on Match of the Day or follow it wherever, and you only have 40, 50,000 in a stadium, or at least in a major stadium. But it's very hard to put a finger on it. I mean, the situation is just so volatile at the moment that you don't really know. Like, Germany might be getting started in a couple of weeks, but Italy are still in a lockdown, especially in the north of Italy, where most of the bigger clubs are. Yeah. Here, we don't have a clue what's going on. France is still in a lockdown. Spain are very slightly easing the restrictions, but everyone's still isolating from each other. So it's hard to try and put any sort of time frame on. But what I would also say is, it feels like the national FAs, national associations, UEFA are all trying to treat next season as normal. But I don't think they should be trying to treat next season as normal, because this is going to impact what happens next season and season after, probably for a few years. So I think the priority should be finishing this season in any way they can, and then that will ultimately delay next season, sure. But if we come out of a lockdown and then have to go back into a lockdown, it's going to delay next season anyway, or put some sort of impact on next season. So the priority, I reckon, should be to just try and focus on finishing this season in whatever way, by whatever time, and then deal with whatever happens afterwards after that point.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's kind of strange, this idea of we've got to protect next season regardless of what happens. Like, this one's already in effect. You can always figure something out to do next season. Like, you could even if it took till Christmas to finish this one, you could decide to play half the number of fixtures next year. Like, people would complain, but like,
even going to Christmas isn't the worst idea, because if you bear in mind the 2022 World Cup, if you go to Christmas, finish this season by Christmas, then you can just have 2 calendar year seasons, and then round off 2022 season with the World Cup, and then I don't know, work it out after that.
That would be wild. That would be absolutely wild. Would that mean Champions League finals in like November and whatnot?
And it'd be the Euros in the middle of next season,
when all the players are at their peak fitness.
It would be pretty cool. I mean,
when all the English media always complains about English players being, they're so unfit come June, July. If June, July is the middle of the season, then they've got no excuses. They should be at their peak physical. So instead of the Christmas fixture pile up, it will just be, the Euros.
And you've also got to look at the contract situation. I mean, right now, teams are going into uncharted territory contract-wise. Whereas at least if you said, you know what, like, next season will run for the duration of the calendar year, and the season after that will run for the duration of the calendar year, and then maybe we take a 6-month break after the 2022 World Cup until we started the season after that, then at least teams now could make plans McCubbin, what do you think are some of the issues with contracts and things and the transfer window coming up?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty worrying actually. I think the transfer window in some ways, I mean obviously in terms of clubs, especially smaller clubs' future over the coming months is pretty indicative of society as a whole and the challenges we face like in the coming months and over the next 12 months and beyond. But I think the transfer market is probably pretty indicative of that as well. Obviously, there's the possibility come the end of June that you're just going to have in the Football League at least thousands of players who are effectively unemployed because their contracts aren't renewed, and then clubs aren't going to be able to buy them or whatever. Like the financial situation affecting different clubs is so vast really, so it's hard to predict really what kind of state the Football League's going to be in, at least, and that seems to be kind of an area, at least in England, where people are most worried. So yeah, it's a really tough one. Like I'd kind of take an opposing view actually. I kind of feel like if this season can't be completed by the middle of the summer, I don't really see the point. I think there's ways in which next season can be okay. It might not start in August. I think we're pretty that seems to be more and more unlikely. But I feel like it could still start in September. Whether or not there are fans in the stadium, I think people will just have to adapt to the kind of viewership of it. And I feel like whether that. There may well be second waves of this virus in months to come, but by that point you'd expect that at least Premier League clubs could have isolated themselves in a way that games can go ahead without fans. Obviously easier said than done, but with months of preparation I think it is possible, especially if Germany are considering it. Like I feel like the Bundesliga, if they're considering it and it does go ahead, they're not going to be taking chances with it. If it goes ahead, I think it's going to be something that has been planned meticulously right down to the last details, and barring any disasters would be sustainable for a month or two. That's my feeling anyway. A positive though that I didn't realize, I only read this earlier. It might have been news for the last couple of weeks, but in England, they've lifted the Saturday blanket ban for fixtures. The 3 p.m. thing. So yeah. So that's good news, isn't it? So if the Prem does get started up again in whenever it is,
well, I guess that's on the premise that there's going to be no fans in the stadiums to watch the games. So
yeah, but I was thinking, like, I mean, they're obviously, I think we're all in agreement. Like, no fans in the stadium is the least of our worries, really.
Yeah.
But there was that, there were a few matches played behind closed doors involving some of Europe's top clubs in that week before everything really started to get real back in March. And people were noting how it was, it did just feel like a training match, and it was quite a weird viewing experience in that sense, just because you don't have that, feeling that you get when you've got the kind of white noise of the fans. I was thinking, like, I don't know, just a way to like make the viewing experience better would be, I don't know, just get a load of fans to go in on Zoom calls, just have a load of them, and then have them celebrate goals and whatnot. Cut to them. So that's my plan for the Premier League and Bundesliga viewing experience. But that's way off the topic of what you were saying.
They should just play like the audio file of just a random football match. Like
just get the old like audio from like FIFA games.
Yeah, and it would just be like, oh, like when nothing's happening, it'd be amazing.
Old football chants as well. Get like the Vieira chant, get the Cantona chant.
God, that would be amazing. I would love to. Like, that would genuinely make me kind of happy. But it's one you kind of feel like you'd have to get rid of commentary as well. Like, what are the commentators really? I mean, I suppose that's a broader question. What are the commentators really adding? But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it'll be like how I used to watch football when I was younger, where I would like put on an album I hadn't listened to for a while, and just kind of turn the sound down low enough that I could not really hear what the commentators were saying, but get a little bit of crowd noise. That's really my dream way of experiencing football.
Just some nice tunes playing.
So obviously, I think we'd all prefer it if the major leagues could end the season. But Mike Atkins, do you see any scenario in which campaigns get voided? I mean, obviously, we've seen a couple of countries cancel their seasons. I think the Scottish lower leagues have cancelled some seasons. It looks like the Eredivisie is going to be cancelled. It looks like the Belgian league is going to be cancelled. Could you see this happening? And if so, what would it mean?
Again, it's very difficult to say. It's all very up in the air. But I think UEFA released a statement yesterday, or what would have been last Thursday, basically saying that if leagues don't finish, then they probably won't be able to qualify teams for Europe next season.
Wow.
When the first announcement came through that the Premier League wasn't going to happen, and then you had all the Manchester United fans and Everton fans saying, I reckon we should just void the season completely. You can't have Liverpool winning a league if all the games aren't being played. Well, then that would mean if the league got cancelled, technically the league didn't happen, so we can't have any teams qualify for Europe. So teams just have to find a way of finishing it, whether it's been like Belgium, where they've basically, I'm not sure if it's been ratified yet, but they've basically said, yeah, we're just going to call the season here. I think in Belgium they've played 29 of the 30 games pre-split, or something like that. So they are at a decent stopping point anyway. Scottish lower leagues, they've called them off, which was very controversial. But it's, I don't know how will teams qualify for the Champions League if we call the Premier League season here and say there's no more Premier League football this season, then is it going to be the top four that get into the Champions League? I mean, that's what you would think so, but then you've got teams who are just below it. Like, I mean, I'll be honest, it's been so long since I've looked at the Premier League table, but Liverpool, City, Leicester, fine. But then you've got Chelsea, Man United, Wolves, and whoever else might be in that little group of teams.
Sheffield
United.
Yeah.
Arsenal fans will probably try and stake a claim as well. That, they'll be like, well, we should be in the Champions League. We're in that fight. I'm not sure how you're going to get teams to agree to something when they've still got something to play for.
Yeah, I completely agree. Especially, I think, with the sides facing relegation, because as
That's
great
a
as
bigger
it
issue,
is, like Liverpool. Obviously, there's a difference here between cancelling a season and voiding a season. So I think I could see the season being cancelled, but I think voiding is very unlikely. Like, no one's going to end up taking Liverpool's title away. But obviously, if you cancel the season, then in places like Spain, for example, where the race is still really tight, or Italy, it pretty much hands teams an advantage who've had an easier run up until now, whereas other teams might have a bunch of easy games running into the end of the season. But a title is really just a nice thing to have. It's not quite the same as relegation, which can genuinely change the future of the club or the European places. So UEFA have come out this week and they said, because there was so much speculation about teams qualifying for the Champions League, they said they weren't going to use club coefficient, which would have meant a team like Arsenal getting Champions League football. And they're going to use sporting merit, so how teams have performed this season, to determine who gets those places if campaigns aren't finished. So that would mean that Leicester got the Champions League over Man United. It would mean that Real Sociedad get it over Atletico Madrid, who are currently outside of the top four. But these are really big decisions being made about the financial futures of clubs. Can we do that? Can we just cancel a season? Or, McCubbin, is there any other way that we could finish a campaign without maybe playing all the remaining matches and without just cancelling it where it is? Are there alternatives?
Well, I mean, there's the playoff alternative, isn't there? Which I think the problem with this it's so each league and at each tier of of the football pyramid in each country, you have clubs in such different financial situations, first of all, and also the leagues are in completely different positions in terms of where clubs stand. Obviously, you made the point that obviously, like Liverpool, they were going to win the league anyway, so that's fine. But in Spain, and Italy, those title races are different, and obviously, the European places are different as well. But I think the relegation stuff is the real kind of worry, I guess, because like if you look at this at the Prem, I think it's Bournemouth and I can't think of who was 17th.
I think it's Bournemouth and Watford, and then I think
Bournemouth
West
and
Ham
Watford
might have also
So
been on the
Bournemouth are
same
currently
points or just a
17th
point
on
ahead.
goal difference, isn't it, or something? And
It's goal difference,
and then,
They're out
and then
on
West
goal
Ham are
difference.
also on 37, and then but then if Aston Villa had a game in hand, so if they won that game in hand, they'd go above them. So I think it has to just be done on a league by league basis. I feel like each league has to just kind of decide. I think that the English football pyramid in terms of relegation and promotion, I think either you do work out some sort of playoff system, or you bite the bullet and you say Leeds and West Brom are promoted to the Premier League. We'll make it a 22 team league next season, and you do that. I mean, I think the Premier League would be the only league that would actually expand. The other, if you did the same with the football leagues, they'd stay the same mathematically. I feel like that works. But obviously that means that the teams that are in the playoff in the Championship maybe don't get a chance with that, or they do just play those playoffs over a 2-week period. I think it just totally depends on the kind of situation. And then when you go to La Liga, Germany and I guess Germany are currently planning to finish the season, but if you go to La Liga and Serie A, then maybe there's a playoff system for who for who wins the title. You get the top 3 teams, or whichever teams are in a kind of realistic battle, and do it that way. I know, like in the Netherlands, Ajax and AZ are tied on goal difference. So I mean, it could literally be a case of doing like an Eredivisie final, which would be pretty entertaining. But yeah, so I think it has to be. There can't really be like a one size fits all with this. Like, it's such an unprecedented situation that I think every league, obviously with the guidance of UEFA and with kind of ratification from UEFA, has to kind of work things out. What fits the interests financially and of the league and the clubs that are kind of affected by this situation.
Yeah, it's not just UEFA as well though. I think FIFA also have to step up and do something too, because I know we touched on it with what you were saying, Mikey, but things like contracts and transfers, for at least a winter league, so like August to May league, the contracts always end June the 30th, and there is no way that the major leagues in the world will have finished by June the 30th. I just can't see any scenario in which that happens, and I feel like FIFA have to do something where they shift the transfer window, or players that have signed pre-contract agreements with clubs that would move on July the 1st can almost extend their stay at their current club before they join their new club, because their current club's still playing in the season, or if they choose they don't want to play, they still can't join their new club for another 2 months until, say, Pedro, he hasn't obviously signed with anyone else, but if Pedro was to agree a deal to go back to Barcelona, or let's say Germany, to go to Bayern Munich, if Germany finished their season by end of June, which could happen feasibly for them, Premier League's not going to finish by the end of June, so he should remain in the Premier League until the Premier League's finished. Then he can move on to the Bundesliga when it's more appropriate to. But I feel like there's so many, every single aspect of football has been impacted from this, sort of from the grassroots level all the way up. Like even my youth football league, the one I used to play in all those years ago, they've cancelled their season for this year. They've just sort of, wherever it is now, they just say, yep, that's it, that's the final. And then you've got the Belgian league and the Scottish leagues basically doing exactly the same thing, which is ridiculous. But there's so much that we probably even haven't even considered that we'll need some sort of changing.
Yeah, I mean, they did the same with the National League as well. National League South and North have cancelled, and now they're kind of in this process of like, they basically kind of said, well, now we're going to work out what's going to happen with promotion and relegation. And you've got Barrow, who are top of the National League, saying, well, let's just leave it as it is, and we'll get promoted to League Two. And they've obviously had an amazing season. But then you've got like Notts County, who are literally third place, so are still vying for promotion, saying that they basically said that they weren't, that wasn't what they would have wanted. They didn't want the season to be to be cancelled like that, despite it being put down to a vote. So it's there's just so much riding on it, and the cancelling part is just it's just the first of a really long process, and it feels like there's not enough time to sort this if we want to reach a kind of fairly swift conclusion. I think time feels like it's kind of running out almost.
Yeah, and I guess teams like Notts County as well, who are obviously a big club in the sort of grand scheme of things at that level, they would have put their resources in to try and get promoted straight back to the Football League, in the same way that Aston Villa pulled all their resources in getting pretty much straight back into the Premier League. That Fulham, I think Fulham might be in a similar situation where they've tried everything they can to try and get back into the Premier League at the first attempt. Obviously there's teams with financial issues already, like obviously Bolton and Bury and a whole host of other teams that have these financial issues, but then the teams that are planning for normal football seasons year on year will also be impacted, because if Fulham don't get promoted, that's going to have a huge effect on their finances, considering how much they're paying so many people. And to not have been afforded even the chance to get back into the Premier League will not go down well with them, the same way it wouldn't go down well with Notts County not even being given the chance to try and compete. I feel like it'd be different if the season finished and they finished third and it's like, well, we didn't get promoted, so be it, as opposed to finishing the season 10 games early and going, well, we might have got promoted if we played those extra 10 games.
So just to bring it back to, I think we'll finish with the Premier League, because it's obviously the division we know best. Mike Atkins, what do you think will actually end up happening with the Premier League? Do you think they'll void it, cancel it, finish it with playoffs, or finish it properly?
I think they'll finish it properly. I think with the Premier League in particular, there's just too much money in it to do anything else than finish it properly. When it will be finished by, no idea. I reckon it'll be August, September at the earliest when it finally finishes. I can't see any matches being played here until at least the beginning of June. At least, probably a lot later than that. I feel like the season's going to finish as normal, as in all the games being played. It will all be behind closed doors. There's no way that the fans will be anywhere near the stadiums. I just think... I think the Premier League season will finish as normal, but as for when, well, your guess is as good as mine, Patrick.
Cubin, what do you reckon?
I think it's a little bit more up in the air. I really can't make like as clear a judgment as that. I think it feels like, I mean, I think this UEFA thing is pretty significant, what they've released, and I think the Premier League will probably start getting the ball rolling with options now. But yeah, I think it could either be that, or like I wouldn't be that surprised if there was some sort of playoff thing where they pretty much cancelled the season, but teams going for Europe and teams going for and teams in the relegation kind of area, there was some sort of playoff. I'm pretty unsure, to be honest.
What do you think, Patrick?
I would have gone with you, that I thought they'd finish it out because of the money, and because, like the ratings would be insane now if you could bring football back, and because the Bundesliga, if they can find a way to make it work, will kind of set a blueprint for how you could do it. But I also think the longer it goes on without them settling on a plan, the greater the likelihood is they cancel it. If we get to June and we're still kind of none the wiser, then I think at that point they might just be like, you know what, like, sorry, Bournemouth, but you're going down on goal difference. And, at least the title is clear. And at least the Champions League places are kind of clear.
I think all major seasons will finish as normal, unless UEFA put a deadline on it. If UEFA put a deadline on it, then we might see things change very, very quickly. But until that happens, if that happens, then I reckon all seasons will eventually finish, whether it's in June or in December.
Well, because they've extended the deadline, haven't they? I think they made the deadline now like August the 2nd, whereas before it was
like that.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess that's always subject to change, isn't it?
Well, it's going to be an interesting summer ahead of football or no football, whatever happens. Thanks very much for joining me, guys. It was really good to have you on today.
No problem.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
Thank you very much to Beer 52 for sponsoring us and keeping the Coven happy during lockdown. And thank you to you guys for watching or listening. If you are listening to the podcast, make sure that you are subscribed if you're just listening to a first episode. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and give us a like. Drop a comment below with a suggestion for a future topic. And thanks very much. We'll see you next time. Bye.
It's extra time. He shoots, and it's a goal.